Hi everyone, this is Heather Lottinen from the Flourish Academy. This is episode 526 and it's January, which means it's tax season. So today I'm talking about income, expenses, and most importantly, profit. And inside of the Flourish Academy membership as well as Elevate, we are talking a lot how to make ourselves more profitable, understand where we're spending our money, where can we cut expenses. So I wanted to share with you what I'm working on today. Every year, this time of year, I jump into my QuickBooks and I print a report called Transaction Detail by Account. I have it in front of me for all of my expenses. I go through my expenses for the previous year, line by excruciating line. Okay, it's not that bad and I have it down to a science, but I want to tell you why I do it. Couple of reasons. Number one, I want to see if there's any expenses I didn't know about or any subscriptions I didn't realize they still had so that I could cancel them. And by the way, that did happen. So I was able to cancel one of those. I want to see if I'm spending money needlessly or on things I actually really need. So what I do, I have this report. Today, this report is 18 pages long, 18 pages worth of expenses last year. My total expenses were 35% of my sales, which is a little higher than my target. My target is 30%. So I'm tracking this weekly, monthly. I'm looking at my expenses and I'm trying to keep them at 30% or below. So for the year, I was at 35%, which isn't too bad, but I need to keep an eye on it, obviously. Okay, so what I do is I take a ruler and I take this report, and so that I don't just scan it and say, oh yeah, that, because that will be your tendency. I take a red pen and this ruler and I go line by line. I look at the expense. If it is deemed a necessary expense, which is really open to interpretation, isn't it? I mark it off with a red pen. If I'm not sure or I need to look into it, it gets a highlighter, because what I'm going to do is take all those highlighted items and look a little more closely into them, but I'm also going to add up the amount. So where I stand right now, I printed this morning. I spent about an hour going over it. I am halfway through it. I needed to take a break because my eyes were bugging out of my head staring at it. And I have, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4, maybe 5 things highlighted that I need to take a look at and that I also need to consider. So for instance, one of those things was I bought I bought 2 camera bags this year, and I mark it and then I ask myself, did I really need to buy 2 camera bags this year? Oh, well, yes, I did. Thank you. And then I mark it off if that's the case. I have some Amazon expenses that I didn't, for some reason, aren't in the memo field in terms of what they are that I need to look at. Okay, let me be honest. I used to never do this. And when I started doing this years ago, I used to dread it because my books weren't exactly clean. I always kept good books, but they didn't always have the data that I needed. Within the past, say, 3 to 5 years, my books are squeaky clean. I can look at the detail of every single one of these transactions and know exactly what it is. And if I don't, I'm going to look it up and make a notation. So like, well, what did I buy? There's a couple in here from Amazon that for some reason I didn't categorize properly. I just missed it. So I'm going to go in and clean those up as well. So by the end of today, actually probably by lunchtime, I will have this entire expense report gone through and detailed in terms of where can I be a better steward of my photography income. I follow Profit First. If you're not familiar with that book, I highly recommend you pick it up. We are exploring it in depth inside of Elevate and a little bit inside of the membership. But I wanted to give you a quick overview of where the Flourish Academy expenses are. So again, they're at 35%. I spent my biggest expenditure for the year in total was $14,428 on education. I like to learn. I belong to a lot of groups. I like education, so I'm going to go ahead and say that was necessary. My next biggest one was just under $12,000, and that was my charitable contributions. So at a high level, I donate to 2 charities, and then there's another one that I periodically send a check to. And that, I think, is just running a wise business. So I'm going to continue to do that. My travel expenses were around $6,000, which isn't too bad. Independent contractors, so people I'm paying at the Flourish Academy, was around $12,000. I spent, listen, everybody needs an accountant. You should have an accountant in your life. My QuickBooks are so clean and so nice because I have a team. They help me and they make sure that I keep them that way. They keep me on track. I wasn't always that good at doing that on my own. So I spent $2,700 last year on my accountant. Now, I believe he is a little bit on the high end, but I love the service that he provides along with his staff. So I'm absolutely going to keep him because I love him. I could probably find someone cheaper, but I have established a relationship and I like these people. Oh, by the way, that's a clue in business. If people like you, they will spend more money with you. I think that you could get that down to probably, oh gosh, if you have an accountant, do you want to let me know how much you're spending per year? In the comments would be great, but if you're weird about stuff like that, then you can message me. I just want to get a range. I just wonder what people are spending. I know it's less than that. I know that for a small business, that's a little bit on the high end. Okay. Advertising, I spent around $1,800. That's Facebook ads, various platforms. And camera gear and bags. You know what? I should have actually categorized all of my, because I bought an iPad last year too. That was like $600. But camera gear, I bought the Fuji X-T3. Was that last year? I guess it must have been because it showed up, or maybe it was a lens I bought. Anyway, that category was $1,300, so I feel pretty good about that. $1,300 as a photographer on gear is pretty good. Now, because I don't do as much client work as I used to, I don't have a huge cost of goods sold category like many of you would, especially if you were in in-person sales. So that's definitely something you need to look at. But in order to keep your cost of goods should be in check prior to you doing this exercise, because that's dictated at the client level, at the sale level, at the product level. So this is how much a product costs. This is how much I sell it for. There's my cost of goods sold. You should know that at that detail. So when you're looking at it in your expense report, you don't really have to calculate, you could, your overall cost of goods sales, because it should be in line with your individual. So you definitely need to look at that. Anyway, I used to, again, dread this process. I actually now really look forward to it. I was excited to work on this today because, again, my books are so clean. It's just a matter of looking at the expenses and, checking your heart. Am I spending money where it needs to be spent? And am I profitable? Do you look at your profit loss for the end of the year? I actually look at it weekly, but at the end of the year, I look at income minus expenses, and there should be a number. And that number tells me, number one, is my business profitable? And, by the way, where is that money? Where is that money going? Are you keeping it separate from your personal finances? You should be. Even if you are a hobbyist that makes a little bit of money on the side, I would highly recommend having a separate checking account so that you could, at the very least, track your income and expenses just to make sure you know where you're at. I think it's really, really important to track this. I don't think that everyone needs to have QuickBooks. I think you could have a really simple spreadsheet where you just have maybe by month, by customer, however you want to organize it. You have sales, so you have income. Then maybe you have another spreadsheet that has all of your expenses. You need to be able to look at this at the end of the year and see what your gain was or what your loss was. And by the way, it's not necessarily a bad thing for the first year or two for you to be in the negative because of the amount of money you spent on gear or computers or things necessary to get your business up and running. I am a freak, and I never wanted to be in the red for my business ever. From the word go, even when I was just a hobbyist, I was all about profit forward. So I never took out any debt on my business. I use my credit card, I pay it. I didn't have any debt. If I didn't have the cash to purchase a camera or lens, I did not purchase it. I was always profit forward. That's just because my brain is actually really simple and I can't handle the thought of, I'll spend all this money, but then I'll get all this money in. And then in the future, I have to keep things like really delineated. That's just the way I work. So I've always been profitable because that's a core value of mine. I won't go into debt. Question. Are you doing this on any level? It does not have to be as detailed as what I do, but are you looking at what did you make last year and what did you spend last year? What did you spend? And was it appropriate? Certainly there are things I spent that I did not need to spend. Why did I need 2 camera bags? In my mind, the justification was I needed one for my smaller Fuji gear, so a smaller bag, and then for my D750 and my larger gear, so I needed a bigger bag. Okay, did I really need that? Did I really need that fancy new iPad at the end of the year? No, but I enjoy it, and that's okay. Listen, bottom line, you're the boss of you. You can run this however you would like. I would just say that you cannot grow in your business until you have this stuff in line. You can't. Your brain won't allow it because it thinks you can't handle it. So if you are ignoring any component of this and you think you're going to grow your business, you are wrong. It won't allow. Your brain will stop you until you have a handle on your finances, your taxes, how you're tracking it. You can get help. This doesn't mean that you have to be an expert in any of these areas. You can get help that's very inexpensive. You can spend a lot of money. A lot of people don't face this because they don't understand it. We fear things in direct proportion to our ignorance of them. So you don't understand it, so you do nothing. But you can ask for help. You can look around for an accountant. My first accountant was $60 an hour, and she charged me very, very few hours. But she gave me a ton of peace of mind, and she helped me set up my QuickBooks from the beginning so I could sleep at night and not worry about the IRS knocking on my door. Lou says, yes, I have it organized for every month, but I don't use QuickBooks, which is fine. You do not need to use QuickBooks, whatever works for you. And I'm like you, dollars first, then use it. I don't like monthly payments. House is paid off. Wow, good for you. I hope that you guys found this useful. I'll see you in the next video.